Hello, welcome to Abundant Possibilities. My name is Sarah James, and I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to talk about these books that I have, and they're a series channeled by Paul Selig, and they come from the Ascended Masters, and they have touched me like no other books have really resonated with me this much. So I really wanted to share these books with you because it's something that I think that's a beauty of anything that you learn you can share with other people. So what these are, if you're not familiar with Paul Selig, I'm going to read the inside of the book and then kind of share a little bit of information with you. I might get some mispronunciation. I'm going to be reading this out loud, so, I might make some mistakes. That's totally fine. Maybe just bear with me. These books, seriously, have been amazing, though. So I'm really excited to share this with you. And this is the first one that he did. It's I Am the Word. This was channeled by Paul Selig and dictated, or I guess he talked to a lady on the phone and she did everything out, and that's what this book is all messages from the Ascended Masters, if that makes sense. So I'm on the process right now. I'm on the mountainside. I'm in my journey, and I'm just wanting to learn as much as possible and share that information with anybody that I can. So the inside of the book says, in this breakthrough work of channeled literature, writer and medium Paul Selig records an extraordinary program for self-realization, as dispensed by beings of higher intelligence, sometimes called guides or ascended masters. These figures seek, as they have in the past, to assist man and woman in discovering the higher purposeful nature, or Christ itself. Sorry, I live in the city. That's city noise right there. That lies dormant within all of us. In a series of enticing, irresistibly practical dialogues, the guides of I Am the Word identify the emotional boulders, residues of pain, fear, or anger that block our true nature. The guides provide to-the-point psychological and existential insights, along with self-development exercises and affirmations, which begin to strip away layers of apprehension, doubt, and self-suffocating habits. Boy, can I tell you that is true. I mean, I can't even tell you how true that has been for me. So that's awesome. Through the use of these affirmations, exercises, and insights, and with the unique assistance of the guides themselves, readers of I Am the Word can become receptors for energies from above, finding catharsis in especially difficult areas of life, and beginning to feel and live as the authentic men and women we were born to be. Wow. I mean, who doesn't want to be their authentic selves? Who doesn't want love in their heart and to radiate love and to see their fellow? There's a lot of people. So right now it feels to me that the earth is kind of in this kind of battle between people that are seeking this light and people that are still kind of in this past way of thinking, of holding on to these things that they think are so important to them, which could be anger, jealousy, rage, or possessions. So yeah, like I said, I'm in the process right now of going through it. It's been a little difficult, but it's been amazing. And as you can see in this book, there's pretty much every page has something underlined, circled, highlighted. It's been amazing, and I've never really dove into books the way I have these. And so for the next couple months, I'm going to be reading these for myself and for you. Anybody that's out there listening, maybe there's one person, maybe there's two, maybe there's somebody else that's read Paul Selig and they want to join along and read these with me. If you have these books, then please do share your experiences. If you've done the affirmation, please write your comments down with what your process has been and how these books have worked out in your life. If you go on Amazon and and pick any of these books. You can read all the reviews that people have left. I know I'm not the only one. It's touched so many people just hearing these words. And, you know, there's been other books like The Course in Miracles and John Casey, all these people that have channeled the Ascended Masters. And sometimes it resonates with you a little bit more when you hear it said this way and use language from, you know, for me, the language of this just makes more sense to me. And I try to get into the Course of Miracles, and even though I enjoy it, it doesn't resonate with me the exact same way. So if you're in the process and you're finding things that you love, then share those with me as well. So I am going to start off on the initial discussion. And follow with me if you want to. If you just want to, I don't know, hear a story, then, you know, maybe this isn't the book for you. This is definitely something where it's exercise. It's something that you have to do the work to do. But if you're willing to do that, then I really want to share this with you. So I'm going to do that. And as I said earlier, Paul Selig was the channel for these. And then there was another woman. And it says, the following are transcriptions of channeling sessions recorded in New York City between February 26, 2009 and March 14, 2009. Paul Selig served as the channel. Victoria Nelson was present via telephone from Berkeley, California. So this is basically just everything that was channeled through Paul and was written down. Starting with initial discussion. February 26, 2009. We want to talk about things, and we have chapters to write, and we have issues to be absorbed in a larger text. 15 chapters, each one about Christ and the mastery of that vibration in a being. Now, we don't talk about personage of Christ as we do the personage of Victoria or Paul or Stanley or Fred. That's not really the issue here. The issue here is to discuss what it means to be aligned to the Christ vibration in a body that walks around and encounters other bodies in frequency. Everything vibrates in a frequency. This much you both understand, and your readers will understand as well. Frequency is frequency. It's the molecular breakdown of the issue, as it were. Now, Paul will back away whenever there is talk of science because he is frightened of it. He is not a scholar. However, we know that what we talk about, and when we say it's the basis, we simply mean that when you vibrate at a frequency, that is the frequency that you are aligned to. And when you are aligned to a frequency, that is what you call to you. That is your experience of yourself and your experience by others in this way as well. So it's no big deal that you are in frequency. The question then becomes, what frequencies are available to you, and what do they mean? What does it mean to be in Christ at a certain frequency and tone, as it were? Paul is saying tone as in sound, and we will say yes. In an extended way, that is what we mean. Because tone implies resonance, and when something resonates, something is in alignment with itself and will call to it other tones, frequencies, expressions of the Christ that are vibrating at a similar level. Now, the Christ frequency, as it's understood now, is a high one, and it has been misappropriated, entitled by most people who have assumed it to be a Christian basis in religion. And a religion, unfortunately, that has received alignment to the wrong mindedness of men throughout time. And once you bypass the religion and you understand that the Christ is a consciousness, is a frequency, is an offering to man from the Creator to align to, then you begin to have a different experience of understanding who you are. There can be no Christ in man without man's aligning to it. And it is there a silence until it is awakened. And when it is awakened, it has one duty, which is to seek itself in realization. No one is without the Christ. It has not bypassed anyone. And there is, in form, a way to access this frequency that will be understood as we continue to transcribe our stories and our teachings to you both. Now we do this with intention, and the intention is that the recruitment to this service becomes larger than two people discussing an issue with guides, service, and attendance. This becomes a larger issue in service because this is work that is meant to be understood by others. And in the time that it takes for us to be transcribing these notes and teachings and lessons, we could be waking up a lot of people. So we are assuming now that this will be a vehicle to serve the awakening of others. We will assume this, and we will work with you both to align to the possibility that restructuring the self in alignment with the Christ frequency is the work of the time, the work of the time, the work of the time. Now we want to tell you some things before you go any further. This book will be 12 to 15 chapters long. It will have a basis of understanding that is called something that will entitle each chapter, but that will not be the real chapter. The real chapter, in a funny way, will be a microcosm of a larger teaching. And once the small teaching is understood and inherited by the consciousness of the reader, then the work will take off in the cosmos, as it were, and the reader will begin to absorb structures beyond what it has read, what has been read. If you can understand that this is a process that we are intending, and it's as if many of the chapters are etched in light and will be read in the higher frequencies once the key has been placed in the lock by the reader, that is going to be the process here. So it's as if we were to tell you, my weekend in Alaska is the chapter when, in fact, you would gain an understanding of all that is cold by reading that chapter without knowing that that is what you are truly doing. You would be resonating at a certain level that would allow the dictaphone to continue beyond what's served on the physical page. As we will tell you this, 12 to 15 chapters, each chapter has a title. Each chapter is in service to a consciousness, to an awareness, to a vibration, to being the alignment of the Christ in man in fruition. Now this is no little deal. This is not A Course in Miracles. This is not another book that has been written. This will be transcribed by us through Paul. You will witness, you will question at times, and you will direct when Paul's self pulls out because he thinks this is crazy, or because he doesn't want to know the answers because they challenge his own belief systems. So there is going to be a requirement for neutrality for this process to take hold. Other than that, it's really a question of meeting and transcribing and owning the possibility that the work that we are bringing forth is, in many ways, a vehicle for the manifestation of the Christ in man. When we talk about Christ, we will be clear now. We talk about Christ as a creation of the God self inhabiting man in its fullness. We do not say, you are Jesus, any more than we are saying you are a thing, or a that, or a light thing that can be called Jesus. Jesus is a personage of the Christ, a manifestation of the Christ in fullness. And there are others as well who have ascended to this level of understanding and frequency. And in part their wisdom will be informing the text that we work with through Paul and through this process of understanding. Tonight you are both going to have an assignment in order to realize the book fully, and that is to imagine the book as sealed. A sealed book of promise that has been waiting to be unfolded for many, many, many years. And the unfoldment of the book will come in time. As each chapter is opened, the seal is broken, and the wonders that have been held within will open to the public who reads and wonders and accepts its vibration in its truth, as its truth. Now this is the work of this night, because once you understand that the book is already written, and to a large extent, this is a process of transcription and awareness and receptivity to the information held therein, it becomes a spontaneous act of being present for a miracle, as it were. Yes, indeed, we will say this. You can be present for a miracle. Now, to wonder what a miracle is to ask yourself, what am I? What is the one before me? What is the sky? What is love? What is a tree? What is my name? You are a miracle. You are a miracle. All these things are miracles. And what we are consigning to you is a miracle of understanding that will bring forth in this way the triumphant Christ self into manifestation. Now, we do not say this lightly. This is not a tour book. This is not a how-to book. This is not a book that will solve your problems or take away the responsibility of your lives. That is very significant, because when people buy books that are going to save them, they are paying someone to do the work for them. And in fact, that is always a false truth, because the work can only be done by the self, and the self's own worth is received in consciousness. So when the self does not believe it can be fixed, healed, responded to as Christ, you know well that that cannot be undertaken. But in fact, those blemishes that stand in the way of the perfection of this realization can be cleared. And once they are cleared, the true face shines forth in beauty and wonder. And that will be the effect for those who engage in the process that we engage them in. Pause. Transitioning now. And this is a transitioning time. And the time that you are standing in must first be understood in order for you to recognize the achievement of the Christ as it stood until its time. The manifestation of Christ in men has remained primarily an ideal for the last 200 years. That has been the ideal that has not made itself fully known, fully realized, fully understood, although the teachings that would have enabled this to be so are present in every religion on this planet. However, the withstanding of that, the understanding that this is a time when these changes are remarkably apparent, will become so understood by you that this will be a transition in your understanding of who and what you are, and who and what you have always been. The time that you are standing in is a time of great change, and the change that we speak of is a cosmic one, and it is an interfacing with the consciousness of man and man's creations on a grand scale. Step out, Paul. We need to give them more information, and Paul is actually obscuring because he's trying to listen to what's being said as it's being said, and that's not an effective way to hear. The easiest way for Paul to do this is to step out of the picture as if he's going to the bathroom outside in the backyard and say, okay, there's stuff going on in the house, and I trust what's going on in the house is safe, so I might as well read a magazine. So we'll say it this way. There is nothing going on in this body, Paul, that you don't have to fear being taken over by. There is nothing terrible happening. You can align to us, and we will deliver the speech to the extent that you will step out. So this isn't a chapter, this is a discussion. The first tape is for the book. This is not. This is preparation and an understanding of how the work needs to happen. Now trials come to every man when he decides, I am going to go forward and claim my consciousness as the Christ. Everybody you know of who has taken this one has had a hard time. So why, Paul, would you assume that your path or the path of those that you teach would be a whole lot different? It's not an easy path, and it's only not easy because it moves things. And when you unleash a cave by rolling away the boulder that's blocked its entrance, its face and everything that had been sealed within comes out screaming as it's exposed to the light. And this is the process you have undertaken. And those you work with, like it or not, have a similar experience. Now, it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be hard at all. It simply needs to be. And all that is hard is your attachment to the regulations you have placed on the self for the self to be and see and experience the world in a certain way. That's all there is to it. If you don't believe that the trees will fall, when the trees fall, you will be astonished. If you believe that trees fall all the time in the forest, you are not surprised at all when you find yourself stepping over tree trunks on the path in the woods. That is the way this is. If you believe that the structures that you have created to give yourself worth or prestige or feeling of safety or a belief in your abilities to do certain things, If you believe that those are all permanent structures, you will be shocked when suddenly you are not able to write anymore, or when suddenly you have a new desire, or suddenly the prestige that you require to give you praise in an external way is vanished. Then what do you have? Now, if you know that trees fall all the time in the woods, you go, okay, here we go. I'm continuing on my path, and I may have a tree to climb over, but that's all there is to it. If you believe that trees never fall and you are struck by a tree, you're going to have a harder time with it because your world will be rocked. In this country, 9/11 did something very similar to the consciousness of this country. It realigned itself first to victimhood, and then to outrage, and then to a belief in retribution. And those were all required by the collective consciousness of the thinking and the experience of a country who did not believe that such a thing could happen to them. If there had been another consciousness, the responses would have been fairly different, and the premonition of change and the change in the status of this country would have been worked with in a very different way. But because the country was in a frightened action, and then in revenge, which is always unconscious, because one cannot be truly conscious and be in revenge, you will understand that the course that was acted on was approved of by the mindset of a country that did not believe that a tree could fall in the woods. There are trees falling all over the place right now, and people are climbing, and they're building tree houses, and they're building tunnels, and people are hiding their money, and they're doing whatever they need to do to prepare for difficulty, which, as you know, creates difficulty. You do not prepare for a divorce without planning a divorce, and you do not prepare for difficulty without planning for difficulty. That is different from saying, I'm going to save some money. I am not going to give up something that I need right now that gives me a feeling of safety. However, if you hold on to something for the safety that is going against the soul's requirements, you will find that there is a difficulty ahead. Because at this time on the planet's juncture, the realization of the soul's requirements must be put first. Period. It's going to happen anyway. All that will stand in the way is resistance. Now we will tell you one thing. The country's role at this time is not to be the leader. It is to be the model of great transition, and how this country observes itself in transition will become a marker for the survival of this country and in the passing years. This country has an opportunity now to relinquish power in a vibrational way that has been assertive and active, engaged against as opposed to for. And once that is understood, that there can be a kindness and a consciousness and a wisdom, many, many, many things can change here. However, if you revert to the patterning of the past, which is the consciousness of the country as it still stands, of entitlement and outrage and self-congratulatoriness, let me read that again, and self-congratulatoriness for its own past conquerings, you will find that the country has a difficult, difficult time ahead of it. Does this have to do with the Christ? Yes, yes, yes. Of course it does. We speak of the Christ in terms of consciousness, and the vibration of the Christ, which would bring about the change in consciousness we speak of to this country and to this plane of existence in a whole way, is part of the transition that we discuss with you today. Take a little tea break. Have some nice herbal tea, Derry. Oh, that's good stuff. We're taking Paul further out so that we can channel directly. This will be an opportunity for him to stay in the background and look at a picture hanging on the wall so we can get the words out without intrusiveness and questions. He has many questions too. I know when I started reading this book I had a ton of questions, and I'm still full of questions, and every time I read one of these chapters it just resonates with me more. So Whistler's mother is hanging on the wall, and Paul wonders what the big deal was. It wasn't a great picture, was it? However, what it was, quite simply, was an identity framed in consciousness, outpictured and created, then witnessed by others. And that is everything in your life that you understand, experience, and see. So it is as worthy an issue, it is as worthy a painting as anything else you might stare at while we have a discussion with the tape recorder and Victoria. So we speak of the country, and we speak of the Christ, and we speak of the manifestation of the Christ in consciousness as we work forward to bring forth the required changes. We will speak of the book again and what the book needs to be. It is a passage book. It is a book that you read, experience, and there is a passage entitled to its purchase, which means when you start the book here and you complete the book there is a different place. There is a different frequency. There is a different knowing on the other side. The book itself is the passage. If you think of the book as a steamship crossing a great ocean from one continent to the next, and when you get off the boat you are on a new continent, that will be the instructions held therein. And by instructions, we don't just mean what one needs to do to receive the Christ consciousness, but also the work that is done silently through impressions onto the energy fields of the readers by the guides that are working with Paul and working with this on a global level to bring about this shift. Paul is doing service in this way, regardless of what he thinks, and there are many others on this planet right now that are doing similar service, because this has to become a maze. If you can imagine that these are temples being built, these are pyramids being built, and the high frequency at the top of the pyramids links to create a grid, a matrix of consciousness that will become apparent, an energetic system, a Christ vibration that will then be allowed to work through and inhabit and recreate itself through the personages, energy systems, beings of those who would welcome and embrace it. You will understand the mysticism and the practicality of this endeavor. So this will be one pyramid, and there will be many, many, many being built in the conscious intentions of the seekers on this plane at this time. Now Paul has questions, and the questions are as such. Will I be myself at the end of this journey? Will I still have my job? Will I still know what I want? We have answered these in direct channelings, and they will be answered again as part of the chapters of the book, but only in a way that will frame this experience for the new intelligence that is approaching this material for the first time. Now, Paul is going to be channeling daily for the next 2 weeks, whether you can be present or not. We are going to ask that someone be present to take notes and to hear the voice as the chapters unfold. This is not like a book that has written over many, many months and years. This is a book that is dictated, and it is in passage. So Paul will have to clear the desk a little bit in order to make this possible. He worries a lot that there will be nothing to say, that there is no chapter. It's easier to say there will be a chapter than to fill one up. But if Paul listens carefully, he will realize that we have just written a prologue today, and an introduction that will suffice, with several edits to stand as a whole chapter. Now, the passage that we speak of this book, of this transition that the reader will attend to, is a transition of knowing, and what people know when they finish the book will be different than what they knew when they picked it off the shelf. However, we do not speak of knowing on an informational level. We speak of knowing in truth. I know what I know what I know what I know. We do not brainwash. We do not infiltrate. We create the opening for their own knowing to be made full within them. How will it feel, finally, to know? I know myself. I know my worth. I know my love. I know my body. I know my path. And I know that I am deeply loved by my Creator. Now, Paul does not know this. He defends it by saying it's process, and that in time he will know if he's meant to know. But he has a huge investment still in anchoring all the reasons why the Creator could not love him, and others as well. Because I am this, because I'm that, because I don't do this, because I don't do that, or because I do that. All of this is an excuse and a way for the ego to prevent the self from releasing its power through the Creator. When you are in the Creator's love, you are one with who you are in truth. And all of the things that embellish the self, that keep the self separate through embellishment, which means I am this, I am that. All of those false tokens one hangs on their shoulders as reasons why they are separate from God's love or others, or the self's love. All of those things must be cleared. Now you will do this, Paul, as others do it, but we will use you as an example through the book as a way to see the self as healed. We will use Victoria to the extent that she is present for these channelings, and we will use descriptions of others as well who you don't know or who you do know, simply to say an example of someone who does this, that, or the other thing that needs to change in order to realize herself as the Christ self that she truly is. But other than that, you will be understanding things on a level that is global. It is global, this work. But the global is realized through the individual, and that has always been the case. When there are enough people, frequency at present vibration at a certain level, vibrating at a certain level, the change will be significant and will be felt, and will be resound in a wonderful song. So we thank you both this morning for your attentions to our thoughts, and we will give you the title of the book now. To the extent that Paul can say, I am the Word, a guide to the consciousness of man-self in a transitioning time. Word, I am Word through this intention to realize this book for its wholeness, in its accuracy and in its wisdom. I am a clear channel for the transmissions that are to come forth in wholeness. Word, I am Word through this intention. Word, I am Word. Thank you all. So that is the introduction of the book. And like the book says, you start off here knowing one thing and you end up knowing something totally different. It really has been an amazing experience to go through all of the things that I've been going through and have such amazing guides to help me on this journey. I really, really, really thank Paul Selig for being the channel, for being the vessel that he is. I know that I've always looked at people that can channel as like, oh, like I want that ability too, and everybody can channel. It's just a matter of listening and sharing that information. Some people are more in tune to it, and he's one of those people. So thank you, Paul, for being a vessel and channeling these words. I hope you don't mind that I'm reading this wonderful book out loud. I've been called to just share the light and share the message, and as much as possible, sing along in the chorus of love. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm starting off with this book, I Am the Word, and I'll be back tomorrow. If you want to follow along with me, if you have the book, please do. I will be putting out a new chapter every day. That is my intention. And yeah, if you don't have the book, then look it up. I'm putting it out there. Maybe you have to hear it 3 times. Maybe I can be the person that shines a light on something new for you, and you discover something new, and in that it opens your entire world to abundant possibilities. I love you all. I know who you are. I know what you are. I know how you serve. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you.